so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. Now, you know what I like to do on the show. I want to enlighten you. I want to inspire you. I want to empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want to get you fired up about creativity and project management. My guest today is Terry Haines, and we're talking about his book, How to Build a Universe in 6 Days. I know, quite an intriguing title. So you know what I'm going to tell you to do? Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Good morning, Terry. Thank you so much for joining me on Daily Spark.
Good morning, Dr. Chester.
I'm so glad that you are here today. Now, I cannot wait to talk about your book, but as I always do at the beginning of the shows, I like to introduce my guests to perhaps those one or two people out there who may be a little unfamiliar with who you are. So my first question to you is, what makes Terry? What makes you, you?
You know, I'm not real sure. I've led, I suppose, an ordinary life, gone to school, gone to college, gone to work, and somewhere toward the end of my career, a few things converged, and at that point I decided I was going to do what I wanted to do my entire life, and that was write, and so I wrote. My background is mostly working with offices and helping offices to do what they're supposed to be doing, to take care of directional and organizational things. Later on, I worked with security, and even later on after that, I worked with education. So I've had a varied background.
Absolutely. And I've found that the things that we may not see in the moment definitely have an effect on us later on in life, but they do have a tendency to affect the outcome overall, and that the bits and pieces along the way really and truly do have a way of shining through later on, even if it's unexpected. I love that. Now, you have the experience of being one of those that came to ministry through Campus Crusade for Christ at Central Michigan University. Now, so many people didn't have a college experience, but they have grown up in the church, or they came about it at a much different time later in life, like as an adult. They're already married, they already have kids, and they're looking for faith. Do you think that the fact that you had a college experience also had a profound effect on you?
I think it did, and I think had my experience been normal, where I maybe become a Christian early and go through normal Sunday school, et cetera, I think I might have washed out in my faith in college. But as it happened, I was religious before I came to college, but I had never made a commitment to Christ. And I remember even looking at a picture of Christ and saying, "I got to be like that man." But you know, that doesn't make you a Christian. That doesn't mean I repented of my sins. That doesn't mean any of that sort of thing. It was sort of like I was emulating. I wanted to emulate Jesus, and that's where I was when I came to college. But yes, I came to college, became a Christian through Campus Crusade for Christ, which I think is now called Cru. Is that right? Do you know?
You know, it has changed its name, and I don't want to put the wrong thing out there, but right, it's no longer called that, but it's the same, kind of the same premise, still trying to
it is the same I still have the 4 spiritual laws, slightly modified when I knew them.
I love it, and I'm glad that they're still doing that, because you're right. College for so many kids or young adults, this newfound freedom sometimes gets a little wonky for some folks. So you're right. I'm glad that they do that. Now, being an author, is that something that you always wanted to do, or did you find that it was just the next thing along your life path?
It was. I think it was always in the back of my head. It was always something I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I remember back in 10th grade, there was an English teacher that made us do a journal every week and said, I don't care what you write about. I don't care about the grammar. I don't care about any of that, but you have to think. I want you to think, and you put down a page of what you think. And I just learned that I really enjoyed it. And I began writing for her or for an audience that didn't exist. And writing about things, and it was always short. It was a page or two a week, but it was one of my favorite parts of the week. So yeah, I guess it was in the background there.
Absolutely, and I can understand that. Now, as a pastoral counselor, that's one of the things that I suggest to my clients is that write. It doesn't matter what you're writing about. You don't have to share it with me or share it with the world, but just get those thoughts out, and you'll be surprised at how it makes room for new positive thoughts to have a space to come in, and just to be able to work through a care, a concern, or sometimes even a plan which leads to a praise, but just to be able to get that out in a freestyle, like you said, and not worry about the grammar or any of those things, or even if it's spelled correctly. No one's reading it but you. So absolutely, I love it. Now, walking into this new place, you are now the author of How to Build a Universe in 6 Days. How did you come about that title? Did it come to you? Did the title come to you first? Did it emerge out of your writings? How did that happen?
Yeah, I think the title came first, and then what a lot of the book is full of is what I call the Creator's Template, which is, and it's about, you can imagine, it's about Genesis chapter 1, how God created the universe in 6 days. But what I came out of with it was an outline of how I thought maybe God was trying to tell us that we too could be creative.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I love it when we're able to kind of see a challenge, a positive challenge in Scripture, where it's like, okay, yeah, I think I'm onto something here. I like that. Now, when you were writing, did you find that you needed to be in a certain environment or in a certain space? Was it easier to write in the morning before, the hustle and the bustle of the day, at the end of the day? What worked out best for you?
Well, I ended up writing morning and evening, but, I talk about it a little bit in my book. You got to find your biorhythm, and my wife's biorhythm, and I knew about this because I'm at college, my wife's biorhythm is about 9 o'clock at night. That's when she hits her top spot, And that's when she would do her studying, and it just drove me crazy because I was a steady Eddie sort of a fella, Okay, today I got to get this done. Today I got to get this done, and she would the day before a test, 9 p.m. She would start and she would end about 6 a.m. and she'd be done with her studying. And so she would do an all-nighter, and it just drove me crazy to know that, and to know, and she got better grades than I did, and so that also bothered me, because I was trying to do the right thing, so to speak, and she was doing it her way. Now, the other thing, though, I might say when we're talking about biorhythm, is my biorhythm, and I've discovered it in college, and it's been true ever since. My most creative time of the day is 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. Just get me alone where nothing is going on. Maybe I can still hear the crickets chirping. And so that's where it is. So I think everybody has to find their biorhythm. What is it you can do? What is it you cannot do?
Absolutely. No, I have to agree with you, because I found that I'm somewhere pleasantly in the middle. 11 o'clock, it's like, okay, it's almost like I shift into kind of second gear. But by 3 a.m., I'm done. So if you can go past 3 a.m., it's like, here, you get the house to yourself. I'm gonna go want to go to bed. But you're right. We do all have our rhythms. So it is important to know yourself and know how that's going to work with you. So you're so right with that. Now, writing the book. So many people have a particular something that prompts them, that motivates them, that eggs them on and says, yep, today's the day that you need to put this out to the world. Did you find that there was a particular something that inspired you to make sure that you not only started writing the book, but got it published within a certain time frame?
Yeah, it took longer than I thought it was going to take, and it was because I every time I studied something, I'd want to study something else, which is kind of my nature. But for me, it was a convergence of several things. I had many years ago, maybe 20 years ago, I met a guy. I just thought he was such a godly man. He was at a Bible study that I attended Wednesday at lunchtime. And he had read his Bible through 30 times. And when I mean he read his Bible through 30 times, I mean he started with Genesis, and he read it all the way through until it was Revelation. Then he put the date at the end of the book, and then he started over. And so he kind of convinced me that that was a good thing to do. And, of course, you have to understand it's all interconnected. But it's okay to start at Genesis. It's okay to end in Revelation. And, anyway, just about any way you want to do the Bible study is fine. But I had just finished one of those, and I was starting another one. And with this next one, I decided I was going to write 5 questions, and one of the questions was, in what way is God creative? Well, forget about the rest of the questions, because that one took me forever. And I was in Genesis chapter 1, and then I bounced from there to every other part of the Bible, but that's kind of what happened. And I had needed it. It was a thing where I was finding I didn't have wisdom. I didn't have solutions. I was having things work wrong at work, and and different relationships. All of a sudden, somebody who was my friend wasn't my friend, and so I just it was a great seeking out of wisdom. And took forever, but it was a great time of worship. It took about 5 years.
And we never know how long the plan is going to take. We laugh sometimes where someone says, "Yeah, well, I thought I'd be done in a year, but it, like you said, it took 4 or 5 years." And I laugh and I go, "Well, there you go, thinking. God had a different plan, and it took the amount of time that it had to take for it to be the product that it needed to be." So it's like it doesn't matter. It's kind of water under the bridge now. But I agree with you. You asked that question, how was God creative? Yeah, you don't have to go much further than just the creation story. Thank God there's more. But yes, to take nothing and to make it into this beautiful something that we can all share in now is amazing. I agree with you, Dad. Well, Terry, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And how do we stay in contact with you?
Yeah, the book is How to Build a Universe in 6 Days. You can find it at Amazon. And let me give you a website. It's Terry Haines, and it's TerryHaines.com/TCT. The TCT stands for the Creator's Template.
I love it. Alrighty, listeners, now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. My guest today is Terry Haines, and we're talking about his book, How to Build a Universe in 6 Days. Now, I know that we can be creative folks, but I tell you, God was just amazingly creative in that he could see the vision for this world, and I love it. So, Terry, my next question for you is, so many times people say that, my book is different, and there's always that person out there that says, yeah, that's what they all say. But I do like to give my author guests an opportunity to say how their book is different. So what makes yours different or unique from some other books out there?
Mine is probably different on two levels. One is usually when you go into Genesis chapter 1, you talk about evolution. I do almost none of that. There's probably in the entire 125 pages of it, there's probably about 3 paragraphs of it that talk about evolution because that wasn't my concern. But the other thing is not only am I not a scientist, which usually people who write these sort of books are, I'm also not a theologian. I am your average, everyday guy. And I feel a little bit, a few years back, somebody wrote a book, The Lord is My Shepherd. Well, he actually was a shepherd. And so he explained how we should look at that book and how we usually don't. Well, this is where I am. I feel like I am the average guy. I'm not a name you would know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a theologian. And what did I find? And it is interesting. I find it. I mean, of course, I'm saying that about myself. But it's interesting to look in God's Word and see something just from a different point of view and come up with something.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you were writing, did you find that you had a particular reader in mind? Were you including our young adults, our college age folks? And was this for someone who perhaps was new to the faith, or should you be a more mature Christian? Who were you really writing the book to or for?
Well, yeah, I did ask myself that after a little while, and the answer I gave myself is I'm writing to me when I was 20 years old and when I had first come to the faith.
Mm-hmm. And I ask that question of most of my guests because I find that we do want to include ourselves at that particular stage, right? So if we can include us, then it's like I have so many questions, and I wish someone would have written this book for me. So I can definitely understand that. I love it. I love it. Now, you've written an entire book on how to become more creative by following God's example. Creativity. Can you talk a little bit more about that attribute and how we can be inspired by God's creativity?
Yeah, that's there's something. Although I wrote it for myself, I found as I was writing that it was for, in my mind, an increasing number of people to the point where it's almost everybody could pick this book up and use it. But for instance, people planning out their lives, people actually creative types, which I have some creativity, but I don't have. I'm not a painter. I'm not. I'm not a lot of things. Project planners, anybody who's the head of, families, churches, business owners, politicians, anybody who wants to get from here to there and just can't see the way to do it. That's what it ended up being. And so I've sort of forgotten your question, but that's sort of the second part of your last question is who did I write it for? I wrote it for myself, but it ended up being for all these other people.
No, I think you were definitely answering my question as well with the creativity aspect of it. That it shows us how to be creative, but it also inspires us to be so much more than what just the basic part of who we are, but that we can get that as inspiration when we read. Yeah. Go ahead.
You know, when I'm talking about creativity, I'm talking about I don't like where I am. How do I get someplace else? And just about anybody who gets in that situation, which is all of us at one point, has to have creativity. So I think that's that's who it ended up being written for. I wrote it for myself. I wrote it because I enjoyed it. I wrote it because I found that as I studied for it, it was worship. But that's really what it ended up being by the time I was all done.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely understand that. Now, what do you recommend people do before they start to read your book? Is there anything that they need to do to kind of prep themselves? Is there anything they should do while they're reading? Should they journal as they go along? How should they read your book for the best possible outcome?
Yeah, I actually have a place for the journaling inside the book. You don't have to use those pages, but where I do ask, what does this mean to you at each step? And by the way, there's 25 steps. The book itself has 24, but I've put one in since since then, and so it's developing in my mind still a little bit. But to prep, what I want you to do is I would like you to just tell God your troubles. And then write it down. This is the issue I want solved. And then I'm going to ask that you give yourself 3 months. And I use the book as I would say first read the book. But I use the book, have used the book several times as a devotional. There's 25 steps. You can just, on day 1, you do step 1. On day 2, you do step 2. Once you understand the book, and once you understand these steps have a certain meaning to them and a certain way that they develop, then you can do it that way. Preparation, yes. Just be real with yourself. And say, this is my problem. I don't get it. I need some solutions, and then start the book.
Yeah. That self-assessment is so important. We can't become our best self if we don't take the time to say, is there something that I need to work on? Is there something that I can do? And we can all do something. Even if it's just taking that baby step of first asking, is there something that I need to work on? So I like that. I like that suggestion that you make, Beth. Now, you suggest that God used 4 separate states to create our universe. Can you explain a little bit, what do you mean by that, and what are the 4 states? Now, I don't want you to, of course, tell the whole book, because listeners, I'm going to say, you have to purchase the book to get all of the juicy goodness. But if you could explain that to us just a little bit more.
Sure. One of the things I noticed right away, and I don't know why, I seem to read the Bible and get different things than other people do. But one of the things I noticed right away is that Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. God is like he's laying down a foundation. Okay, here's the start. So I call that discover. That's the time to discover. Genesis 1:2, the earth was without form and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. I explain in the book why, but I call that design. The first you discover, then you design. Starting in verse 3, chapter 1, verse 3, through the end of the chapter, you find the 6 days of creation. So I just called that do, using alliteration here. Discover, design, do. And then in chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, talking about the Sabbath, God rested on the seventh day. I call it done. And so all of those steps, every one of those steps is necessary if you're going to have a life that's good, an organization that's good. And if you don't have those steps, and if you don't have these sub-steps, then that's an indicator that something's wrong, that some future thing is going to happen that you're not going to be ready for.
I like that. Discover, design, do, and done. Yep, I can definitely see that. What a beautiful way of helping someone get a picture in their mind of what's going on there. I love it. Now, you mentioned before the creator's template. You explained the creativity being made up there as passion, purpose, and skill. How do these things, how do they keep themselves balanced? How do we utilize that according to your book?
It was an interesting point in trying to put together my book, because what I was doing is I was taking a phrase and I was trying to make it into a word, just a single word. But then I came to, in the beginning, God created, and I go, I don't know what to do with it. And I actually wrote most of the rest of the book and then came back to it. And then I decided that I was going to take what I've heard is the heart of man, and the heart of man is mind, will, and emotion. And I put these backwards, but I just gave them different words. Instead of mind, I said, well, these are skills. These are skills you either use with your mind, you use with your body. Purposes, that would be the will. Passions, that's all of us have passions. We're supposed to have passions. But the thing to remember about this particular part of it is that almost all churches and almost all people do one and only one of these. They either end up being very passionate, everything is an emotion, or they're very purposeful. And if I can pick on churches, you've probably been in such and such, where they have the altar call. Well, the altar call lasts 5 minutes and then 10 minutes and 15 and 20. I'm not actually picking on that, but I'm saying that would be the will, that would be the purpose. But you see, it's an overemphasis a lot of times, and so we have overemphasis. Skills, mind. Let's go specifically with the mind. We have churches and we have people that are mind-oriented. You can't get them out of their mind. You might as well cut them off at the neck, because you can't get them out of their mind. Everything they do is there, and so that's the thing I learned from that part of the book as I was studying and trying to figure it out is that not only people do this, they're one of the three, but not all of the three. But that churches do this, they're one of the three, but not all of the three. And we just need to correct that, So find out which one it is that you want to be of those three, and then just start working on the other two.
I love it. Now, it is time for us to go to break, but before we do, thanks to my lovely team, we wanted to confirm, yes, you were correct. Campus Crusade for Christ, new name is CRU, CRU, and they checked that out for me, so thanks, you guys. Just in case if you hear that, you know that we're talking about the same thing. It really is a helpful project that goes on there. Now, before we go to break, Terry, though, could you please remind everyone the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
To contact me, the name of the book is How to Build a Universe in 6 Days. My website is Terry Haines, TerryHaines.us/TCT.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. My guest today is Terry Haines, and we're talking about his book, How to Build a Universe in 6 days. If you want to be inspired, be enlightened, and be empowered, then today's the day, because he's reminding us how to be more creative. We're looking at it from the perspective of project management. What can we do? How can we do it? What's the best way to do it so that it is the best that it can possibly be? And it's inspired by God. I love it. Now, Terry, my next question for you is dealing with some examples that you have put in the book, dealing with the template itself. How should we understand that directive that you've given to us?
Yeah, I gave several examples because I thought people are just not going to understand if it's just a concept. And I gave a total of 10 examples. By the way, you see it in daily life. Once you understand this, you'll notice how you see it in daily life. Even going to the doctor, I put a possible one. What do you do if you're lost in the woods? You know, it's the same discover, design, do, and done. It's the same thing. Being on a jury for a murder trial, or maybe beginning a homeschool adventure. All of those are some of the examples I gave. I gave a total of 10 examples, and I tried to take you through every single step. Each of these 25 concepts, I'm calling them building blocks. And so each of these 25 building blocks almost always will occur as you go about from trying to go to what I don't like, what I see, and what I do want. Almost all of it. I mean, I've gone through them, and I think the least I've seen is only 22 of the 25. These are almost always useful to daily life, and especially if you're in a leadership position. But even if you're not, these are useful in daily life.
Now, you said at one point in the book that the Creator's Template can be seen as a thermostat. What did you mean by a thermostat?
Well, I meant a thermostat or a thermometer, and by thermostat, I mean it tells you where you are. And if you take a good hard look at all of these things, it'll tell you where you are. I'm sorry, that's the thermometer. But the thermostat is where you say, okay, this is where I want to be. So it's just good for looking at things over and over. Where am I, and where do I want to be? It's good for assessment and reassessment all the time.
Now, for so many people, you're right, and I'm so glad that you brought that up, because we do need to. We might know where we are, but we don't know what to do with that information, or we have no idea where we are, so we don't know what to do in the first place. So I'm so glad that you put that in there, because I'm sure there's someone raising their hand saying, "Yep, that is definitely me." Now, you also used what you call the Creator's Template as a monthly devotional. Should we understand that we can utilize that the way that we have some other devotionals where we partake or do a particular thing each day, every day?
Yeah, and I think I previously said read the book first, but then you can use it as a devotional. It's 25 days after you're done with of the building blocks. 25 of the building blocks. There's 4 stages that they go through. You can spend every month on these 25 stages, and then spend whatever is left of the month on just reviewing what are those the 4 stages. So 25 building blocks, 24 in the book. I've added one, and the four stages.
Now, you also mentioned that there are 4 people in the Garden of Eden and that they each represent a certain something. Can you first tell about who are the 4 people, or how should we understand that there are 4 people, and what do they represent?
Yeah, this represents just about all of our everyday life, and the 4 people in the Garden of Eden were God, Adam, Eve, and then the serpent. And so this tells us our relationships. We're conceived in a kind of like a war, an area of warfare, and God and Satan both are fighting for our souls. So there's that. But I'm going to suggest that when you think of Adam, think of yourself, because you have to think of yourself. What are my needs? What do I need to do? And think of Eve, not as that wonderful, beautiful woman that no doubt she was, but think of her as your neighbor. So there it is. We have God, we have Satan, and we have ourself, and we have our neighbor, and that's just about all you need. There's your relationships.
What a different way of thinking about that, and I like it. I think that so many times we do forget about the person that is our neighbor. We're so focused on me, my family, me and mine, as they say, and they forget about the love your neighbor as yourself portion of it. So I like that. Thank you for including that portion. Do we all need to think about where we are in our lives, especially during this pandemic time? Do you think that we all need to sit down, think about where we are, assess where we are, and then use your template as a way to change ourselves to the better? We're preparing for a new year and all of that. How can we utilize this on a personal level?
Yes, the pandemic is I just feel that God is a multifaceted diamond, and every experience every day is a new way to see God. And when a person who looks at diamonds, they always see a flaw in the diamond, because there always is. But when you look at God, there's never that flaw, and so every day and every experience is like that. Now, I've had, besides the pandemic, I've had personal physical issues. I had a head injury, 2005. I'm still light and sound sensitive. There's a lot of places I can't go. I've been to a Coliseum or a large place 3 different times. Had a seizure each time. Then I had a major seizure this year, from which I thought I was not going to recover, and as it within 3 days, disaster, and then 3 months later, within 3 days, because they got the right medicine, almost normal. But it helps us remember that we're mortal. We take things one day at a time.
Yeah.
I heard something. You take things one day at a time, but not just one day at a time. You take it long range. And I heard, and I never could confirm whether it was true, but I heard that Martin Luther was once asked, what would you do if Jesus was coming tomorrow? And his answer was, I would plant a tree. And I love that answer. I just love that answer. And that's how you balance the short term and the long term, is you take, okay, this is my situation. This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. I'm still going to have a short term. I think, especially Christians, I think sometimes we get in this, we get in a situation where the worse it gets, the more likely the rapture is going to come, and I don't need to do anything. I mean, there it is, man. I'm done. I'm just waiting. It's beam me, instead of beam me up, Scotty. It's beam me up, Gabriel. But no, there's always a one day. Okay, how am I going to get through today? But there's always, as if the next 200 years are going to definitely exist. I think that's the way we have to approach life. And I think we Christians have had this situation where I see it right around the corner. There it is, the rapture. And so we haven't done anything for the last 20 to 40 years. Well, stop the madness, stop the nonsense. Yes, and COVID will one day go away. It's a great time to be introspective. It's a great time to reassess your life. And but every day is like that. Just do it again, reassess the life.
And you're right. We should not allow anything to necessarily overwhelm us. We should move through things smartly, but also plan for tomorrow. But look at today. You're so right. I think about my grandmother's generation. My paternal grandparents were born 1903 and 1908. So when the Spanish flu, the 1918 flu, came around, it was a doozy. It was the COVID of its day, and they were able to survive, but it required change, but it also took long-term thinking, right? Like you're saying, what do we need to do right now to make sure that right now is okay, but let's plan for tomorrow, because we know a tomorrow is coming. So I love that, and being able to walk in that reassurance. So I love it. Thank you for that. Now you mentioned two words or two phrases that I think it caused some people a little bit of angst, and that is short-term, long-term, balance, planning, and goals, right? So what are some ways you say those words, and it's like, stop it, you blaspheme, and it's like, calm down, it doesn't have to be quite, all of that, we can get through this. So how do you suggest that people balance their short-term and their long-term goals?
Well, I look at our country's founders, and they really had a 200-year plan. They really did.
Yeah.
And, many of them were Christians. If they weren't Christians, they understood Christian concepts. And it just seems like all the wrong people seem to have a 200-year plan for us, And we need to stop thinking that way. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with if you have a family and you really affect your grandchildren, and your grandchildren really affect their grandchildren, there it is. You've just had a 200 plan. Now, you didn't know you had one, but you did. You had a 200 plan, and I think that's what we need to get back to. So yes, how do we get through today? Sometimes that's I don't know how I'm going to make it through the next hour. Well, I'll make it through today, but I'm hoping tomorrow is different, But yeah, we still need to, in the back of our head, have some kind of 200-year plan. I think always.
Absolutely, I have to agree with you with that. And like you said, you have dealt with your illness. My listeners know that I'm a breast cancer survivor, and I held on to scripture too. It's like, nope, you said that there is a plan for my life. You said there is a future. I'm going to hold on to that. So let's try to make it to that future that you have for me. So I love that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I think grabbing a particular scripture sometimes just really helps. Just search and search and search until you find one, and grab a hold of that. And okay, this is mine today and tomorrow and next week and next month. And just don't let go. Don't let go. Yeah. And that's what you need. And no doubt that's what you were doing when you were going through your situation there. You had to say, okay, I can't let go. I can't. And Absolutely. It's like that determination. It's like, if you guys think that I was determined about some other stuff, it's like I am so determined about living. So
It's like this is what I am holding on to. So I agree with you there. Now, I also am someone who notices things that tend to repeat or things that other people might not notice. That I notice that it's a certain time and the numbers that I see or the way that things are lined up, so on and so forth. And to me, it's a beautiful way that I understand that God is talking to me, or perhaps others that might see it the same way. You noticed that a lot of threes in the first 3 chapters of Genesis happen. What did you find to be the significance of this?
I thought God was playing a game with us, and I thought he was it's like artists, when like a painter, he will do things a certain way, and that's just his way. That's how you know that he is the artist. And then of course he signs it in the usually lower right. But I noticed a lot of threes. And I didn't put it in the book, but I finally challenge you to try to do the same thing I did. I finally found a series of 30, right around 33s in the first chapter of number one of Genesis. Let me give you the first ones. First of all, why did I do this? It's because in the beginning, God, the word God is plural. So God's playing a game with us. In the beginning, God, and then God is plural. So what do we mean plural? And what's the next thing we should be looking for? Well, the universe he made was a time-space mass continuum. Each one of those has 3 ways to look at it: time, past, present, future. Mass is three things usually. It's solid, liquid, or gas. Space is 3 directions. So there it is. In the first verse, we have 3 things. I found that in the 6 days of creation, there's 3 forming days, and they fit together with the 3 filling days. So day 1, for instance, was light appears. God spoke. It was. Day 4, light appears, but it's the sun, moon, and the stars. Day 2, water and air separated. Day 5, water and air, animals were created. Day 3, land and vegetation appears. Day 6, animals created, including man, who were land dwelling, and at that time were vegetarians. There's 3 types of days. There's forming days, there's filling days, there's also the Sabbath day. So I invite you to make your own list there. See if you can find as many as I did. So maybe you'll find more. But God, it's like God created something, and then he put his signature in there. He told his story, and by the way, you can find 3s in nature all over the place. And so there it is. Like I say, a person who's really good at identifying paintings. He can tell you whether this painting is from this guy or this guy by the way that he did it. And God does the same thing.
He just certainly does. He does put his signature on his work. I agree with you there. Well, Terry, oh my goodness, we are out of time, but I have so enjoyed my time with you today, and I think that our listeners have as well. Before I let you go, though, could you please one last time remind everyone of the title of your book, where we can get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Sure thing. The book is How to Build a Universe in 6 Days. It can be found through Amazon. It is an ebook. You can download it. And my website is Terry Haines, TerryHaines.us/TCT.
Terry Haines, thank you so much for spending time with us here today on Daily Spark.
Thank you, Dr. Chesney.
And listeners, thank you for spending time with us here as well. I hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you today. As always, may you continue to see God's grace and mercy in all that you do. Remember, everyone, you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day.